$100 a week. That is $14 a day. Less than most people spend on lunch. Less than a tank of gas. Less than 2 streaming subscriptions. And if you had started investing that exact amount, $100 every single week, 30 years ago, you would have over $1 million sitting in your account right now. Not from a lucky stock pick, not from crypto, not from anything risky or complicated. Just $100 every week for 30 years. Now, here's the part that should stop you cold. Most people hear that number and think, great, but 30 years is a long time. I will start later when I have more to invest. And that thought right there, that single, completely reasonable sounding thought, is the most expensive thought a person can have. Because I am going to show you today exactly what happens inside those 30 years. Not just the final number, but the actual journey. The months where nothing seems to be happening. The years where the account barely moves. And then the shift, the quiet, almost invisible shift, where compounding stops being a concept and starts being a force. I am also going to show you something that most finance videos never tell you, what happens when you start at different ages, because the difference between starting at 25 and starting at 35 is not 10 years. It is several $100,000. Stay with me, because the next 10 minutes might be the most financially important 10 minutes you spend this year. Section 1, the number most people never see. Let us do the math together. $100 a week is $5,200 a year. Over 30 years, that is $156,000 invested in total, your own money out of your pocket into the market. Now, if that money sits in a savings account earning 2% annually, which is generous for most savings accounts, after 30 years you have approximately $212,000. You almost doubled your money. That sounds decent. Most people would take that. But here's the number that changes everything. If that same $100 a week is invested in a broad, low-cost S&P 500 index fund, one that simply tracks the 500 largest companies in the United States, using the market's historical average annual return of approximately 10%. After 30 years, you have $1,001,000. Not $200,000, over $1 million, from the same $100 a week. The difference between those two outcomes is not the amount you invested. You invested the same amount either way. The difference is where it sat and whether it was compounding. Now, I want you to pause here and actually feel that for a moment, because this is not a theoretical scenario. This is not a best-case projection. The S&P 500 has averaged approximately 10% annually over the last 90 years, through the Great Depression, through World War II, through the dot-com crash, through 2008, through the pandemic. 10% average over 90 years of wars and recessions and crashes and recoveries. And the person investing $100 a week for 30 years in that index is not doing anything complicated. They are not picking stocks, they are not timing the market, they are not watching CNBC every morning. They are just showing up consistently, week after week, through the crashes, through the recoveries. Not checking the balance every day, just letting time do what time does. Section 2, what actually happens inside those 30 years.
Here is what nobody tells you about the journey. The first 5 years feel like almost nothing is happening. You have invested $26,000 of your own money, and your account shows around $33,000. $7,000 of growth after 5 years of consistent investing. That is, let us be honest, underwhelming. If someone told you to do something for 5 years and the result was $7,000 extra, you would question whether it was worth it. This is exactly the moment when most people stop. They look at the number, they compare it to the effort of setting aside $100 every single week, and they decide there must be a better way, something faster, something more exciting. So they stop contributing, or they pull the money out to use for something else, or they move it into individual stocks trying to accelerate the growth. And in doing so, they exit the game right before the game changes. Because here is what happens in years 10 through 20. By year 10, you have invested $52,000. Your account shows approximately $88,000. The growth is starting to become visible. $36,000 of returns on $52,000 invested. By year 15, your account crosses $170,000. By year 20, $290,000. You are now generating more in annual investment returns than your total weekly contribution produces in a year. The account is growing faster than you are adding to it. This is the shift. This is the moment compounding becomes a force rather than a concept. And then years 20 through 30 happen. Year 25, $520,000. Year 30, $1,100,000. Do you see what just happened? In the first 15 years, the account grew to $170,000. In the last 15 years, the same 15 years, the same $100 a week, the account grew by nearly $900,000 more. The money in the last 15 years is not doing anything different from the money in the first 15 years. It is following the exact same rules, the same market, the same 10% average. The difference is that in the last 15 years, there's far more money already in the account compounding. The base is larger, so the growth on that base is larger, which makes the next period's base even larger. This is the exponential curve, and it is why the people who quit in year 5 when the account shows $7,000 in gains make the single most expensive financial decisions of their lives without realizing it. Now I need to show you something that is going to feel either motivating or urgent depending on how old you are right now. Let's take 3 people, same $100 a week, same 10% average return. Person A starts at 25, invests until 55, 30 years of contributions. At 55, they have over $1,100,000. Person B starts at 35, also invests for 30 years. They stop at 65. Same 30 years, same contributions. At 65, they also have over $1,100,000. Wait, so the starting age does not matter? Here is where it gets real.
Person A started at 25 and stopped investing at 55. After that, they stopped contributing and just let the account keep growing. By the time person A is 65, the same age person B just finished their 30 years. Person A's account has grown to over $2,800,000 because person A had an extra 10 years of compounding on top of their 30 years of contributions. Same $100 a week. Person A, $2,800,000. Person B, $1,100,000. The difference is 10 years. Now let me show you person C. Person C starts at 45, also invests for 30 years, stops at 75. At 75, person C has $1,100,000. But by then, person A, who started at 25, has a portfolio that has grown to over $7 million from the same $100 a week. This is not a trick of math. This is compounding doing what compounding does when you give it enough time. The question I want you to sit with right now is this: how old are you today? Because every year that passes is not just a year, it is a compounding year. And a compounding year in the early stages of this journey is worth more than a compounding year in the middle, and a compounding year in the middle is worth one near the end. The cheapest thing you can invest right now is not $100. It is the decision to start. Section 4, the obstacles that stop people and the truth about each one. I want to talk about the real reasons people do not do this, not the excuses, the real psychological barriers, because they are specific and they deserve real answers. The first one is, I will start when things settle down. Things do not settle down. Life is not a calm lake that occasionally gets rough. Life is turbulence with brief moments of calm. If you are waiting for the right time to investing, you are waiting for something that does not exist. The market actually has a name for this behavior. It is called timing the market. And decades of data show that trying to time the market, waiting for the right moment to get in, consistently underperforms simply being in the market consistently. The right time was yesterday. The second best time is today. The second barrier, I do not have $100 a week. That might be true, and if it is genuinely true, the answer is not to wait until you do. The answer is to start with what you have. $50 a week for 30 years at 10% is over $550,000. $25 a week for 30 years is over $270,000. Even $10 a week, started today, compounds into over $110,000 in 30 years. The amount matters far less than the habit and the time. Start with whatever is real right now. The third barrier, I don't know how, it seems complicated. It is not as complicated as it seems, and it has never been more accessible. You need 3 things. A brokerage account, Fidelity, Schwab, and Vanguard are all reputable and free to open. A broad, low-cost index fund, something like VOIL, which tracks the S&P 500, or VTI, which tracks the total U.S. stock market. And an automatic weekly contribution. That's the entire setup. It takes about 30 minutes the first time. After that, it runs automatically without you touching it. The complexity is a story your brain tells you to avoid the discomfort of starting something new. It is not an accurate description of what is actually involved. Section 5, the thing nobody wants to hear. I've been building to this. Because everything I've shown you so far, the $1 million outcome, the age math, the removal of every barrier, is true and it is real. But there is one more thing.
And it is the hardest part. You have to stay invested through the crashes. In 30 years of investing, you will experience multiple market crashes. You will watch your account drop by 20, 30, 40% on paper. You will read headlines telling you the market is broken, the economy is collapsing, this time is different. And everything inside you will say, pull out the money, wait until it stabilizes, get back in when things look better. That instinct, natural, rational, protective, is the single greatest threat to your 30-year outcome. Because here is what actually happens in a market crash. The market drops, people panic and sell. The market recovers. It always has recovered throughout history. And the people who sold at the bottom locked in their losses and missed the recovery. The people who stayed invested, who kept contributing during the crash, who bought more shares at lower prices, who did nothing different except not panic, those people came out ahead. Not because they were brave, because they understood that the crash is not the end of the story. It is a chapter, and the chapter after it is always recovery. This is the final piece of the $100 a week story. It is not about the money, not really. It is about becoming the kind of person who can hold a long-term position through short-term fear. That is the skill. That is the difference. And it is not a financial skill. It is a psychological one. Let me bring this full circle. $100 a week, $14 a day, started today, held for 30 years, in a broad index fund that has averaged 10% annually for 90 years of history. Over $1 million. Not from luck, not from a windfall, not from knowing the right people or being born into the right family. From $14 a day and the decision to not stop. The person sitting across from you at work right now who seems ordinary, who does not drive an expensive car, who does not talk about their investments, who does not look like someone with wealth, might be that person. Or that person could be you. In 30 years, someone is going to have that account. The only question is whether you decided to become that person today, or whether you kept waiting for a better time that never arrived. I want to hear from you right now. Drop a comment and tell me your age and one number, how much you are currently investing per week. Even if the answer is 0, especially if the answer is 0, because the comment section is where accountability starts, and I want to see the people in this community who are choosing to start. If you are not subscribed yet, this is the moment, because this channel exists to show you exactly how the financial decisions you make in the next 12 months will shape the next 30 years, and there is more coming that you do not want to miss. See you next one.